voice.
What's happening, Neil?
Baghead is a 2024 movie about a woman who inherits a family bar that has a dark secret in the basement. I feel like that log line could be applied to like 1,000 horror movies. But anyway, the best word that I can use to describe this movie is clumsy. And let me explain a little bit. The movie is the embodiment of someone trying to bring a bucket of water down a giant hallway. And they keep kind of bumping into things along the way so that little by little the water kind of empties itself out of the bucket as they go further down. Now, it never lets out all of the water, but it does let out more than it should. That said, for the most part, I actually like this movie, but it did leave a bit too many questions for me at the end. The movie itself centers on Iris, who has been recently evicted from her apartment and forced to move in with her best friend, Katie. She dreams of going to art school, but for now, she is the epitome of down on your luck. And that gets worse when she receives a phone call that her estranged dad that she hasn't talked to in 20 years has just died. Now, all right, I'm kind of getting a little ahead of myself because this isn't the actual beginning. The actual beginning is a cold open that takes place inside of a bar with a video camera confession, a late night visitor, and an attempt to burn down said bar, only to burn the bar owner himself in the process. Anyway, it turns out that the bar owner, Owen, played by the veteran actor Peter Mullen, was Iris's dad. He confesses in a videotape that the bar has a bad curse. Now, he tried to put a stop to it, but fails badly, and instead lights himself on fire. We then cut back to Iris, who is contacted by a strange solicitor and explains to her that she is to inherit the bar, unless she wants to pass the ownership instead.
Once you sign a permission for me to act as executor, well, I can handle the sale and the transition of ownership.
He claims that the property is in such deep debt that it's not really worth any money, so there's no chance of her being able to sell it.
Your father was so deep in debt that selling the pub for a profit would be a financial impossibility, I'm afraid.
However, she ends up deciding that she's going to keep it and signs the deed transferring ownership to her. She then watches this videotape and learns that there is apparently a witch in the basement, aka Baghead Lady, that allows people to talk with the dead, but for only 2 minutes at a time. After that, the witch will leak back in, and she may be manipulating the dead person that she's embodying. Also, you turn her off by placing a bag over her head. He then gives her several rules. The witch cannot leave the basement and lives inside the brick wall, and whoever the owner is, in this case Iris, is never to venture into that wall where she lives.
She can't harm you as long as you stay on your side. So you stay away from the hole.
Also, the witch must obey the command of the owner of the bar, which once again is Iris. However, conduits like these between the living and the dead become a two-way street. And the more that you talk to the witch, the more she'll try and get inside your head and push her goals onto you, which her ultimate goal is to be free of that place, and she's going to do whatever she can to make that happen. Now, around that time, a local rich guy whose wife has died knows about this and comes and offers Iris a lot of money in order to talk to his dead wife. And so Iris sees this as a way to get herself some money to solve all of her problems. Meanwhile, Katie, who is very, shall we say, suspicious of all this, goes off to discover the history of the bar and how to get out from under this curse. Now, I have to say, I really did dig the premise here. The funny thing is, if this didn't come out so soon after Talk to Me, I would have bet that the filmmakers had seen Talk to Me and then wanted to do something similar. But clearly this movie was already being filmed before Talk to Me even came out. So this almost feels like a strange parallel thinking kind of thing. If you listen to any of my other videos, you might know that I really do love boundaries and rules in horror movies. So the fact that they have several different things that you can and can't do, and the limitations that they've imposed on this, I thought were pretty cool. I also enjoyed some of the further details of the witch as they kind of come to light, but I'll delve into that later on. As a matter of fact, I'm going to have to go into spoiler territory from here on out, so if you want to skip this section, just go right here to the summation at the end. As Katie investigates the witch more and discovers the previous owner, a German man named Otto Vogler, she learns that several hundred years ago, a group of men known as the Brotherhood discovered a local woman with the power to talk to the dead. They then enslave her in order to use her powers for themselves. When she resists, they label her a witch and burn her at the stake. Well, that's gratitude for you. Somehow, though, they then are able to bring her back to life using some ancient dark ritual, and then imprison her in the wall of the bar, thereby tying her to the owner of the bar and forcing her to do their bidding. Now, that is a pretty solid backstory in theory, but I thought they didn't quite do enough to resolve some of the mysteries that they set up, and opens up more questions than is answered for me, as the mythology didn't make a lot of sense once it's all laid out. Like, for instance, if the bar is handed down amongst the family and you can't sell the bar, and it can only be passed in death, then how did the Scottish dad, Owen, get ownership of the bar after the German guy, Otto, died? Now, the same solicitor shows up randomly in order to transfer ownership of the deed of the bar. It happened with Otto as well as Owen, and now to Iris. But they never really get into who this solicitor is and how he's involved. Like, what is his stake in all of this? Was there a larger story of oppression that was happening? Is he part of this brotherhood as well as the family of Owen and Otto? And if this solicitor was part of the brotherhood, was he supernatural in some way? Because it seems like he was. And if he was passing the deed down throughout the brotherhood lineage, for what purpose? Like, he doesn't tell anyone who's getting the bar anything about the place or the curse. And he seems pretty willing to take the place off of Iris's hands. So what is his play in all this? How come when someone signs the deed in front of him, the name stays on the deed, but when the rich husband tries to sign his name on the deed, it disappears? Does this solicitor want to see the curse continue, or does he want it to stop? Now, I get the Baghead lady is not allowed to leave the basement, but yet that is what she desires most.
That's her one goal. So, you cannot let her out of the basement.
But then once Owen died, couldn't she just leave at that point because there was no living owner? It was kind of in flux. Also, what is the problem with the Baghead lady leaving the basement? There's a very vague statement of how her leaving would be bad.
You're the one thing that stands between her and the outside world.
But we never really understand why that would be bad. And that ends up being especially odd because once we found out how the Baghead lady became the Baghead lady, we realized that she was created because of the vileness of the Brotherhood. So it seems like she's just a victim in all this. So why is it bad for her to leave? As a side note, I have to say, if the Brotherhood had the power to perform a dark ritual in order to bring the witch back in the first place, then why did they need her at all? You would think if they have access to that kind of power, they could just do anything themselves. And speaking of dark arts and curses, I thought they missed an interesting aspect of the curse between the Baghead lady and Iris and whatever other bar owners that they've gone through. There's a line that Owen says when he's brought back from the dead into the Baghead lady's body to Iris, asking who is really cursed.
She's not your curse. It may be. You're hers.
I thought that was such an interesting concept, and one I was hoping they might explore more of once the reveal of how the witch actually came to be. I thought maybe we were going to go into that movie The Others type of perspective shift where the players on the board are not really what they seem to be, but they never really went in that direction. And in the end, it all really just comes down to that rich husband guy ends up getting desperate and kills Iris and brings Iris back inside the Baghead lady in order to sign the bar over to him, which Apparently that's what the Baghead lady has wanted the entire time and has been orchestrating this all along. But it feels a little more like luck to me than some sort of devious plot. And another side note here, it shows a bit more of Owen trying to burn down the bar, and he burns himself and lights the area around him on fire. But then somehow he runs upstairs and the fire does not catch. It just goes out, I guess. I don't understand why the fire didn't catch on the rest of the bar. I mean, it's all wooden barrels. Why did that not burn down the rest? I don't get that. Because then as we get to the end, it does burn down. Anyway, once the Baghead lady now has Iris, her quote-unquote current owner, she is now able to leave the premises and go out into the real world. But I'm not really sure what I'm supposed to get out of that. Once again, is that bad, her getting into the real world? Like, what will she do? And they tried to set up some kind of a reveal twist at the end, but it's not really a twist. There's just nothing surprising or jarring about it. It seems just like a normal progression of the story. I just got confused because it seemed like it was trying to say something different than what they were actually showing was happening on the screen. And one more missed opportunity I thought they had was in one of the rules, Owen tells Iris, never go beyond the hole in the wall because that's where the domain of the Baghead lady exists.
She can't harm you as long as you stay on your side. So you stay away from the hole.
However, in a somewhat clever fashion, the Baghead lady lures Iris into the wall, utilizing the voice of Katie. And so Iris does go beyond the wall. But then nothing happens. Like, there's no consequences for that. She just ends up getting chased out. So it just felt like a bit of a missed opportunity. As a summation, I did really enjoy this movie in parts. It was well shot and executed solidly. The acting is really good with some nice contributions from some character actors like Saffron Burrows and Peter Mullen, which gave it some really nice gravity. If I'm being totally honest here, there were probably a few too many jump scares in this film, but it wasn't the only thing going on in it, so they're mostly excusable. Its backstory and mythos were really interesting and teased some nice story elements. Apparently, this movie was based on a short film, and unfortunately, it does feel like that. Like it's a golden idea for a short, but when it's lengthened out to feature length, it can't quite hang on the whole time. And that's where it gets to that bucket of water in a hallway kind of clumsy. But despite that, at times, it ends up being a modest movie that stays on track long enough to be pretty entertaining. I'd give this movie a B-. But let me know what you think.